As we near the real most wonderful time of the year, I figured I'd take this moment to discuss one of my other favourite multiplayer experiences, as well as use this excuse to delve into my most beloved genre of both film and gaming, horror. Dead by Daylight was one of those games that just clicked with me from the get-go, and it's one of the few games I've put more than 1,000 hours into. It didn't matter that the console version back in 2018 was practically unplayable. It awakened a new kind of multiplayer experience that I couldn't get enough of from there on. It wasn't until after The Dredge was released that I finally taken a long needed hiatus. And although it was cool seeing Wesker was being added, the Skull Merchant and the Singularity did nothing to make me want to come back anytime soon. Then Behavior does the one thing that could have brought me back with no hesitation. They bring in Alien. I had no choice at this point. I had to see my favourite movie monster, no question. Although I was very impressed with how they handled the xenomorph, I didn't expect to once again be hooked into Dead by Daylight when the novelty of Alien had worn off. Yet there I was, on the verge of addiction, a rekindled love for an old friend. Sure, there were the same issues I've faced 100 times before, the same little frustrations sprinkled throughout a few matches that are needless and tedious, but the only important thing to me was that I had rediscovered the thrill that so little games of this type actually provide. And with that thrill came utter enjoyment. That's why today's video is going to be about figuring out all the reasons why I love Dead by Daylight. Now if you're looking for a video critiquing every little aspect and all the problems that are present in the game, good news! Half of YouTube is dedicated to doing just that. This video, however, will be focused on what this game does that appeals to my specific tastes and life experiences. There will undoubtedly be a touch of pretentiousness spread throughout, so I apologize in advance. Finally, this video is from the survivor side only. Playing as killer has never appealed to me in any of these games. I like being the one who's chased, not the chaser. But I do have a lot of respect for killer mains. When they don't abuse their power, of course. Alright, let's get into it. I want to begin by discussing just how well implemented the alien is. In my early games, I spent most of my time gawking at how cool it looked, and getting myself killed like a fool as a result. My jaw dropped seeing the xenomorph in the distance, only to discover it was the alien queen. I had no idea that skin was going to be added into the game, and I was fanboying way too much upon seeing it. I also loved how, although the alien had certain mechanics that made escaping it more difficult, it still felt fair to go up against. I just had to adjust my strategy, and it made it all the more satisfying to outplay it. Especially in times where I fooled it into going the opposite direction despite hiding in plain sight. There is nothing more thrilling than having a killer look in your direction but not see you, and walk away oblivious. I think I'm more addicted to that high than that of successfully looping the killer and stunning it. My favourite killer to go up against before the alien was Demogorgon, which is sad because not many people used him. But the alien is like an evolution of Demo's design, so I couldn't have asked for a better new killer. Speaking of killers, can we take a moment to appreciate how interesting and uniquely designed the majority of them are, regardless of their gameplay implementation. I think many of Dead by Daylight inspired games fail to capture that same creativity. I'm talking strictly about the original killers, not the licensed ones. A lot of them have fascinating lore, and have really inventive visual designs. In fact, they're so inventive and unique that I'm sad these killers don't have their own movies. I'd love to see them. I know there's a Dead by Daylight movie in the works, but that's not what I meant. I'd love to see these killers with their own movies set in their own worlds, not this amalgamation of worlds under the entity. Say what you want about how much you hate going up against some of these killers. Separate that for a second and try to appreciate just how captivating they are. It's easy to become desensitized to them after thousands of matches. I know at one point I did. One of these days I'm going to do a ranking of my favourite killers, but I won't do what similar rankings do by basing my opinion strictly off what they're like in game. That should make for an interesting video. On the topic of rankings, I'd love to do another one of the music. DVD is sitting on a gold mine of music thanks to its unique implementation of soundtracks through the Terror Radius mechanic. Having 4 different layers depending on how close the killer is, it was so refreshing at the time of release, and it adds so much to the tension. It used to be that all original killers had the same default theme, which was so played out long before they started going back and changing most of them at a later date. Changing the themes helped revitalize the killers and make them more distinct. I just hope they hurry up and change the rest, as there are still a few killers using the default theme. Ranking the music of each killer would be extremely fun too, so it might be worth considering at some point. One of the biggest reasons I love DBD is how it began with me weighing it to years later where I'm now a micromanaging machine, constantly problem solving, exploring all possibilities, forming endless strategies, and always trying to adapt to the hundreds of variables that can occur in just one match. This all happened unconsciously. You don't really know how much thinking goes into it until you've played it for a while. You could be there, doing your gen, your teammate goes down, gets hooked. Do you go for them and get them healed up ASAP? Or will you hang back to get as much progress done so that your team has a chance in the late game before everyone gets killed? Do you use your confidence to distract the killer and try to stall them as long as possible? Or do you stay out of sight trying to work behind the scenes, prioritizing the getaway for your team, even if you might not live to use it? Do you save your teammate who's about to be hooked for the final time by jumping in for the hit? Or do you go lone wolf and try to escape by yourself? Do you prioritize the gens at the center of the map to create a longer patrol path for the killer, even though it's risky to be out in the open? Or do you hope for the best and do whatever gens are closest to you considering you're on the clock? These are just a few of 100 basic examples, and I'm not even taking into account the myriad of perks and killer abilities that shake up the playstyle constantly, leaving you always wondering what nasty surprises could be around any corner. Now you could see this sheer number of possibilities as a problem for the game, considering how much of the game is based on RNG. But I'd choose a game with so much freedom of choice and chance encounters over a safe, boring and monotonous style of play, stripped of all unpredictability for the sake of a restraining balance. That wouldn't suit this game. There's a reason this game is ridiculously popular on Twitch. Very few matches play the same way, leading to some incredible and memorable moments you wouldn't find elsewhere. Hence why it's so fun to watch and capture the moment live. Maybe that means you have 10 matches where you're absolutely destroyed because of bad luck and then you get frustrated. But I'll always prefer that if it means I sometimes get incredibly good matches where the plans align and I walk away with memories I cherish that stand out of the hundreds of other mediocre multiplayer experiences I've subjected myself to over the years. Then again, I do have a high tolerance of getting screwed over before I get frustrated. I'm generally very calm now with multiplayer games, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of them because of it. Especially now that events have transpired in my life, putting into perspective how little these things matter in comparison to the real issues we all face in daily life. Everyone gets mad at games, but we should always try to only get mad when it's legitimately justified, not at superfluous gameplay moments that you won't remember in 10 minutes. It matters so little in the grand scheme of things, and it's wasted energy spent on negativity for zero reason. I guess I feel so strongly about it because I tend to absorb everyone else's negativity, which is why I now avoid playing with friends who yell out at every little thing, because nothing is their fault, the game just hates them. And while they seem to forget why they're angry a few minutes later, my mood is already brought down, and for nothing. Gaming is my hobby, not my punching bag. Anyways, with that unexpected tangent out of the way, let's get back on track, shall we? On an opposite note, I love that the game rewards me for altruistic actions. I get a kick out of games where I sacrifice myself for my team's victory in an overdramatic fashion. And to be rewarded for doing so is a great little bonus. It also forces self-centered players to be helpful too, as they don't stand much of a chance to win if they let you die. Of course, there is a tiny percentage of players who are so obsessed with self-preservation, they will let you die even if it is to the game's detriment. They are few and far between, believe me. There are many situations where you can meet a teammate who you bond with throughout the match, and then you both foolishly keep trying to save each other because you both want to do the nice thing. There are often times the killer might be a Twitch streamer, and once their name is revealed at the end of the match, I usually go into their stream to wish them well. Sometimes even having full-blown conversations about the match and what we both could have done differently. I'm just shocked how many times I've met such humble and genuine folks. YouTube would make you believe everyone's either a toxic teabagging survivor or an irredeemable face-camping killer, using every exploit in the book to gain an advantage. You rarely hear about the matches where you meet survivors who give themselves up at the end of the match because they feel bad for the killer, so they let him kill them. Or the killers who see that you've no chance of escaping being the last one standing, so they let you live, despite all the power at their disposal. These moments stick with me most, and it really made me respect the killers even more. It's kinda strange that this game speaks to me so much, seeing as I prefer to be the lone wolf in multiplayer games. I like to feel in control of my actions, and I despise depending on others. But something about DBD makes me more than complicit in working with others to get out of hopeless situations, making sure we all leave together in one piece. I guess it's moments like these that solidify why I love this game. When one or more of you are at the exit gate and your teammate is hooked, you can take your win and leave so easily. Yet so many times, teammates choose to go back for you. That kind of mentality sells this game for me. Yes, this game seems to bring out the worst in some folks who shouldn't play a game like this in the first place. But you can't tell me it doesn't bring out the best in others when moments like this exist. In conclusion, let me tell you what made me appreciate this game so much more upon returning. As a guy who used to play like the YouTubers who treat this game like an esport, where it was all about perfect loops and meta perks and you must play this way or you're bad, I began really enjoying this game when I stopped caring so much. Of course I still try to win, but I don't obsess over every decision like my life depends on it and feel like an absolute failure when I make one mistake. Take the basic lessons of learning how to loot killers, drop pallets, and being time efficient, but then add your own spin to your playstyle. Disconnect yourself from the die-hard DBD community and surround yourself with those just trying to have a good time. For my own playstyle, I dressed myself like this in order to blend into the environment, and it works ridiculously well. I love hiding in plain view of the killer and not getting caught. And then in times I do get caught, I get a "really dude" look from the killer, and it's hilarious. It makes me sad that other games of this genre end up failing 95% of the time, because what DBD truly needs is another competitor. When the Friday the 13th game was still fairly active, I loved switching to that when I needed a break from the serious gameplay of DBD. I needed something casual. And then I switched back when I get sick of the casual. It was a perfect balance. But with the release of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I haven't tried yet, I hope that the pedestal DBD sits on will continue to be challenged in future. My hope is that we'll get a Nightmare on Elm Street version, or even Halloween. If a developer really wanted to be ambitious, they'd take on my dream game of The Thing, which is a no-brainer considering how successful Among Us is. All I can do now is hope, but in the meantime, I still love Dead by Daylight, and I'm excited to see how it continues to evolve and what new killers may show up. If you want my most desired killer at the moment, I'd say Slenderman. I'm a sucker for him. Watch this concept video, it's likely to sell you on the idea. As always, thanks for sticking around this long. If you're a long-time player, I hope I showed you DBD from a perspective you're not used to. And if you never played it before, but are also a horror fan, pick the game up on Steam when it goes on sale. It's worth a try. Cheers everyone.